Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Resident Alien. A great episode, a lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So obviously this episode threw a few curveballs Harry's way with, well, first and foremost, he has the New York number, but he hasn't called it. And I do like that the octopus gets inside of his head. It's like, oh no, Harry's scared that, that whoever the alien is might reject him because he's become too human. But that's going to be the interesting thing, because maybe the person that's here on this planet is more like him than, because who knows how long that alien's been here. Because once again, we've gotten two junctions of time frames of aliens being here. The one that the general saw, and then there's the one that Liv saw a couple decades ago. So it's like there's some wiggle room of how many people have come to this planet, how many people potentially have stayed. So I think the person that Harry's going to meet might end up being a lot more like him than he expects. Maybe, maybe not. They might be like, nah, you're an idiot. We need to wipe out this planet. If they're here already, why haven't they done it? Though? Why is it on Harry? So maybe there's something there. I mean, why would their people be like, yo, contact this person to be I guess this person's like the human contacting. But why reach out now? And, well, I guess maybe they couldn't reach out to him before now. So do they know that Harry didn't destroy? Well, because they know, well, I guess maybe it's a certain time frame he needed to destroy the planet by, and it's like, well, you didn't, we're going to send someone else here. Or is it maybe they recognize when I don't know if they ever explain why his people would be coming now. So it's probably a thing of maybe because they a signature went out when, the moment a weapon went off, and it's like, yeah, but Earth is still there. Oh, he failed, so we got to send more people. I never thought about that till just now. I was like, yeah, maybe there's something to that. But so Asta's telling Harry we need to go to New York, but before they can even really get into that, he gets a surprise. Last season it was your ex-wife, current wife? I don't remember what him and Isabel's situation was, but his daughter Liza shows up, and it's like, oh, cool. She's kind of in that rebellious teenager age, and I love Harry be like, oh, you had to lock her up and put her in jail, and Mike's like, no, we don't have to. He's like, nope, go ahead, put her in jail. That it works out for everyone, because the less she's around, because it is kind of sucky. There is this messed up thing of it is sad because her real dad is dead, but her real dad was a murderer, maybe a potential assassin, potentially being hired to kill people. We still haven't really confirmed that. At very least, we know at least one person he killed. So, which doesn't take away the fact is that it doesn't justify Harry killing him, because also it's yeah, just because he killed Sam, it still doesn't change the fact is that you're still a murderer. You may have murdered a murderer, but you're still a murderer. Very Dexter-esque. But having to deal with a teenage daughter, and it's just kind of oh, go away, I don't want to have anything to deal with you. And it's oh, she's going to get a bike ride from someone, and it's oh, it's a motorcycle guy. And of course that would strike a nerve with her because of the whole Jimmy thing. It's no, stay away from him. And I was I almost like how she kind of snapped back. It's fine, you want to go go off, fine, whatever, I don't care. And so, but I think that tough love aspect from Asta is because Asta was talking from her own personal experience. It's oh, so was it true you owned a bike? It's no, because it's right, I don't care if you go and get beat up by that biker, because she was speaking from personal experience. It's no, I've been down that road, you want to go off with the bad boy. It's no, don't do that. You're going to get yourself hurt, especially having spent the night at Jimmy's, and that being a whole issue, which we'll talk about later, but I did appreciate Harry's attempts to appease Liza. He's trying to cook for her. And I love the whole thing of yeah, because if you don't feed children, they'll starve. Because it's oh, you helped out Sandy and her baby. It's yeah, but it's babies are cute. They don't talk. So it's yeah, once they get older, they start mouthing off, and they're just oh, I'm going to strangle you. But, it's right, don't let her starve, don't let her die, because that's going to obviously draw in a lot more issues. So it's fine. So he's going to try and play the role of the dad. And then he's oh, well, I am punishing you. You're going to bed without supper. Because he's oh, I've watched plenty enough television, so I know how to be the perfect dad. So it is actually cute, his attempts, whether it's the little tea party, whether it's weird, birds and the bees talk, because he has a banana and a condom, but he's also when she takes the condom, he's yeah, but the donut, and try to get her a dog, which is the dog he stole from Sahar and Max. And it's like, right, I'm holding this dog for ransom, which Sahara never got the dog back. We just kind of swept over that. So it's like, I would assume Harry still has that dog. I'm like, we're not going to really deal with it. Has to come up like next episode or something. But it's because Sahara couldn't get the alien ball back because David found it, and then I wonder what made him I guess maybe he found out the kids were there and he was like, oh, maybe I should, like, why would he search that place? Because it's like, oh yeah, like, that RV is yours, so why would you go be searching through it? But I guess he found out, like, someone had been there recently, so he decided to see, like, what was missing or maybe what was hidden. Like, he might have been keeping an eye on them because, well, he needed a satellite anyway. That was the whole point. So maybe one time he went there, he probably saw them hiding hiding something there. So he's like, what are they doing? So he went to investigate. He probably actually even saw them hiding it because for him to find it in a very specific spot it was, so... That's complicated. That kind of screws the pooch on it. But also, Sahar's not getting that dog back until, like, he gets his steel ball back. And now, like, the government potentially has it. Or at least David does. But it doesn't seem like he's been able to get in contact with Lisa or the general in that regard. So we'll see what happens there. But I do like the fact is that despite the issues Harry and Eliza kind of immediately have, like, you know, their issues in the beginning. But then it's like, you know, first the driving situation, her storming off, then the water balloons. It's like, right, you're the worst daughter I've ever had. It's like, I'm your only daughter. He's like, yeah, but if I had other daughters, you'd still be the worst one. And they had the whole balloon fight. Then I love that line from Ben when he's talking to, I forget, is it Trudy or Judy? But he's just like, I appreciate you being on theme, but could you cover up the cleavage? And she's like, there's a theme? I'm like, I love you so much that you just, like, showed up like that. You didn't even realize what was going on. I love it. Oh, that's so good. But it's like, yeah, they throw water balloons at him and stuff, and they start actually having fun, you know? Because she talks about it a little bit, where she actually said, like, oh, I thought you hated me. And he's like, yeah, if you thought so, why'd you come here? Because she was like, I was hoping that you didn't. It's just like, because if I didn't come here, like, I wouldn't have been able to, you're the only family I have left. And she was scared like he might reject her because they haven't always had the best relationship. She even said at the beginning, at least it takes a little while before you start telling me to go away. So obviously, like, things weren't all copacetic in Harry's life, the real Harry Vanderspiegel. But that was actually kind of sad. But, you know, for her, it's like, right, you have changed, you know, and she was saying in a good way. She's like, look at me too. I've changed as well. And I love him calling the camp. It's like, oh, my daughter, Eliza, won't be coming back to your stupid camp. Yes, your camp is stupid. I will find you and your family. But I thought it was kind of cute. And I think, once again, the biggest part of this season is going to make Harry start caring about other people. Because it is a very Lucifer-esque thing where, like, every case that Lucifer solved basically helped him deal with, like, figuring himself out, as well as it's all about his own growth and the lessons he learns and applies that to, like, figuring stuff out for himself. The same thing for Harry. Like, all these human interactions are all for the purposes of changing him for the better in the long run. So I do like that him and Eliza, like, it was sweet. Once again, there's always this sad asterisk to it being like, yeah, her real dad's dead. But, you know, like, Harry probably won't, like, eventually he'll, like, will he give up, like, his alien life and just live as Harry potentially at the end of it all? And, you know, that'd be kind of sweet if he was able to but it's like, because it's always going to be the sad notion of, like, right, her dad's gone and she'll never know that. Is she better off? It doesn't matter. It's not Harry's decision to make that choice. Like, even if he's a murderer or not, that's still her dad. And, you know, there's always going to be that sad, like, oh, it's sweet, but there's also, like I said, always going to be that sad asterisk associated with it. Probably my favorite part was the play. It was so good, especially, like, everyone's like, oh, yeah. And then it takes on a dark turn. The moment the boulders came out and they threw it at the kids, I was like, this is legitimately fucked up. Even the crowd was like, and it's just like, oh, the person's like, oh, here's my leg. And it's like, this is so gnarly. And apparently Ben spent like 8% of the town's budget on it too. And I love just everyone's just mortified. One of the mothers is almost like, she goes up there, gets her son off the stage, and she's like, Mayor, what is wrong with you? And just everyone's just kind of clapping, and Harry and Liza really liked it, and everyone else is just kind of like, ugh. But Ben's all about it. Kate's kind of like, yeah, this probably wasn't a good idea. The song they're singing, Air Pocket Pete. His name probably wasn't Pete, but it fits. And I'm like, Liv is like, yeah, okay, sure. It's like, oh god, that play was so damn good, so morbid, once again, so fucked up, and I loved it for it. I was like, this is too good. It legitimately made me belly laugh because of how like dark that was. But I even love Kate being like, no, don't worry, we'll put on a new play next year. And he's like, no, you heard what Max said. Max loved it. To be fair, Max isn't the most well-adjusted kid because he was like, oh my God, that's that monument? Oh, the 59 are buried there? Which I love that she was like, yeah, it's kind of like I forgot what the word is that Liv used. I was like, oh, it's not just a monument. Literally, all the bodies are buried there. That's like, oh, that's kind of messed up. But apparently Max went over digging for it, which I find funny considering like Kate and Ben have been on like their bad side of things. So like, ooh, like, but I guess it's like, ooh, like things getting rough in the bed and just like, ooh, we're messing up these criminals is a little different from the dark aspect of this. Part of me wonders like, did Ben not register it because a little bit of a dark side came out of him? Like they have toned that back, except for like the potential like sex stuff. They've kind of toned that back. So I wonder if that's why Kate's almost like, okay, honey, I just love that. And even Ben's just like, no, Max is like, oh, the song is so catchy and everything. Yeah, see you next time, Dad. He's like, yeah, next year we'll make the play even bigger. Bigger boulders, more blood. I'm like, yes, Ben. Yes, yes, yes. I don't care what anyone else says. I'm sold on it. The rest of the town is going to hate it. But man, let this continue to be a tradition. It's like, once again, I think in the long run, Ben's trying to like pull away from like the morbidness of it because he's like, yeah, 59 people died. Let's focus on them being heroes. But it's like, I think Ben might ultimately decide to do it. But I think the thing is, lean into kind of how messed up it is. It's like, yeah, you get a lot more attraction to your town for the wrong reasons. Your town will become infamous rather than famous. But still, like it might, in the long run, might be the better option. But that's just my perspective. Like, I don't know what it's like to be a mayor running a town. But I feel like that probably, the better option. I've kind of felt like that for a while, but we'll see if Ben decides to go down that route or not. I feel like this kind of lends itself to that, but still, once again, all that we've learned about his ancestor, which is like, oh, he wasn't there because once again, his wife found him in a whorehouse and killed him, shot him in the face. So I will not let that go. That's such good lore. That's so interesting because even Ben was like, either he knew that and was kind of even hush hush about that, or even he didn't know that about his family. Either way. Because he didn't even know that the bodies were buried underneath. Like, Liv's the one that pointed out. He's like, oh, really? I didn't know that. So, like, there's so much about the lore of Patience that even he doesn't know, even as mayor. So, maybe that kind of lends itself to be like, maybe Ben isn't the best mayor. He's got that go-getter attitude, and he's trying his best, but still. Either way, I love him as mayor, but, maybe the rest of Patience won't feel that way forever. We'll see. But I do love the lesson that Harry learned from all of this, that, despite differences and stuff like that, family is family. And even saying, like, the alien in New York is his family. And maybe, like, regardless of how different I am, because we are family, that alien might still help me. So I thought that was pretty neat. And I do like that Asta took such an investment in Liza, because it's also because she's dealing with the whole Jay thing this episode. So I think that's interesting. There's kind of a neat parallel. Like, she was kind of overcompensating just because of all that. But I thought that was kind of a sad and kind of yet sweet element to the episode, is obviously how it leads to confrontation between her and Darcy. Also shows you how much of a douchebag Jimmy is, that he's like, oh, really? Like, oh, if Asta's really so mad about me, why she stayed out? It's like, she wasn't in her right mind. You left off the part where she immediately ran away afterwards, feeling bad about even He's like, nothing happened, we just talked. It's like, yeah, but even she recognized how bad that was, which Darcy, after last episode, kind of went drunk and I guess like ran into a tree or something, almost got her eye poked out. And I love Ellen's like, oh, you want to part? Like, a real doctor, a medical physician should probably tell you to drink less. But me, next time invite me out. She's pulling out some dance moves. She's like, yeah, you get a lot more of this. I love it. And Darcy's like, oh, okay. It is interesting, like, personality-wise, you'd think they'd probably, like, mesh a little better, probably. But I guess, like, Asta and Darcy they've just been friends for so long, but also just, like, as they kind of say later on, they're both messes. And it's like, no, only one of us can be a mess at a time, because us both being a mess at the same time leads to utter chaos, so... But, yeah, it's sad that Asta kind of lashed out at Darcy, because it's like, right, she had, like, the only person she felt like she could talk to was Jimmy, because she says it later on. Jimmy was there when Jay was born, and she had to give Jay up, and those sad nights, like, he was there. And I'm glad that it worked out where it's like, nah, screw Jimmy. Like, that's the thing. like it's like, oh, there was some levity with Jimmy last season. You're like, oh, that's funny. But I think I even talked about it. It's kind of interesting. There's levity with him, but let's not forget him being a garbage human being who hit her. Like, not just one occasion, not just what we saw on the show, continuously. So that's why Darcy's like, oh, fuck you. I'm glad you, like, he's like, oh, someone could have gotten killed. It's like, oh, what are you going to do? Hit me? Because apparently that's what you're good at, like calling him out like that. I'm like, yo. It's like, yeah, let's not forget, he fucking beat Asta. So it's like, fuck him. Like, he doesn't get no sympathy and stuff like that. And once again, like that douchebag movement being like, oh yeah, then White Asta, he's trying to one up Darcy, like in that moment, because he's trying to be all like big and tough. Even him being like, oh, you don't want to fight me. You've already lost a fight with a tree or something like that. You want, like, why would you even make that remark of like, you want, it's like, it sounded like you were legitimately, I can't even say like, oh, you meant it in a verbal sense. It's like, no, it almost sounded like she was like, oh no, like, go ahead and fight me. I will knock you out, bro. I'm like, oh, that definitely doesn't help your image. It definitely makes you seem like you're still the prick you were. I mean, maybe you could get better. Maybe you're doing better, but that just seems like you're still backpedaling. You're not fully growing. So I haven't fully accepted you. You're like not being the tool that you were, you know? Even to the point, Asta ended up entering that eating that pepper or whatever contest, because I love Jay being like, yeah, those people on stage, they're adults. And then Darcy's like, I'm an adult. She's like, no, you're not. And then Darcy had to stop, be like, yeah, I guess actually I'm not, you know? Because that was a whole thing, because it's like, oh, apparently she's giving Jay dating advice. It's like, should you really be giving her dating advice? It's just Asta like snapped at her because, you know, she's envious. It's like, you have such a tight relationship with Jay, and she's in that world, like she's in that area where she's trying to figure things out. She's trying to wait for Jay to come to her rather than going to Jay, and just all of that's taking its toll, because it just makes her regret, like, right, what I did, and I can't make up for that time that I wasn't in Jay's life, and now that, you know, I think with all the Liza stuff too, that kind of really like pushed all of that forward for her. Kind of like it pulled, like a lot of that kind of affected her even more so with just everything. Plus, you know, the baby last episode, it was just all kind of triggering, and it just kind of sent her sadly running to Jimmy. And it was even really heartbreaking that she was like, right, whenever she was sad, she went to Jimmy, and for her that almost felt normal. And Darcy was like, that's not normal. Like, because it's like, right, if she's sad, like, go to the person who's always with you when you're sad, because you attribute it with like, right, him being like, you going to him anytime you're sad. But it's sad because it's the same guy that you would constantly forgive over and over again when he did what he did, you know? So obviously not trying to demonize Asta in any shape or form. Like, people sadly find themselves in that situation. It's like, once you're kind of caught up in something, you just feel like you want to give that. It's like, no, it's going to be okay. It's going to, they won't promise not to do it again. And also, sadly, it becomes normal where you're just kind of like, you accept that as your normal. But Darcy, like she said, was like, man, that's not normal. So, because even Asta in the retrospect regrets it. You know, it's like, right, everything with Darcy and just how things played out. But they burned that, like, jersey or whatever they had. And it's just like, yeah, like, not screw Jimmy. You know, because Darcy was like, I wasn't there at that time, but I am here now. So, like, lean on me, rely on me. You want to talk about, like, if you're feeling sad about the Jay thing, come to me. I'll be there for you. I do love that Ellen's the one who ended up winning the thing. She's just kind of like, she was like, bow down to me. I thought she was legitimately going to be like, no, I'm not kidding. Bow down to me because I'm that cool. I'm that good. I love it. I love it so much. There's also a little thing too where Asta is talking to Sam's wife, because a lot of people are avoiding her because she's doing a little face painting section, because everyone in town thinks she killed Sam, even to the point Ben is like, oh, she's got a weapon. It's like, she's got a brush in her hand. He's like, yeah, oh, come here, kid. Yeah. And did like a stabbing. It's like, let's keep an eye on her, because Asta had her suspicions, but now she knows for sure. Like, she knows Harry, the real Harry, is the one who ended up killing Sam. And it's sad that, like, right, without exposing Harry, that's the only means of clearing her name is finding the real killer, but the real killer is Harry, and he's dead, yes, but that causes problems for alien Harry. So what can you do? Like, all they can do is, because even if trying to prove, like, oh, she wasn't the one to do it, even if you were somehow able to do that without revealing the whole Harry angle of it, you'd still open it enough to be like, oh, so someone else is responsible. We got to still keep investigating. I mean, which Liv and Mike were until Harry wiped their memory. So that's just kind of like a sad aspect of it. It's just like seeing her there, and, you know, Asa being like, no, I know you didn't do it. And she's like, that actually means the world to me, having at least someone in the town on her side. So we'll see where things potentially go from there. Like it's just been a background thing, and who knows? Like the fact is, we actually saw her this episode and are kind of moving the needle forward a little bit with that. You know, we'll see if anything more happens with that. But speaking of, we learned a little bit more about Mike. Obviously, him losing his partner 5 years ago. Even Cletus being his partner's dog, and it's like, yeah, like you know, he wouldn't have wanted anyone but you to take care of him. So that's why Cletus is so important to him. You know, it's like, oh, he treats that dog better than he treats Liv. But it's also because what that dog symbolizes. That dog is his last tie and connection to his partner. It's a constant reminder in that regard. So it's like, you know, he probably already loved the dog ahead of time because, like, you know, that was his partner's dog. But then it's like, add in that it's, you know, such a tragic situation that that's why Cletus is so important to him. I thought that was actually kind of neat, adding that extra element of like why he treats that dog like so well. Like, you know, not saying like he should treat the dog like crap or something, but it's like why he treats it even better than Liv in the past is because of like that. So I doubt even Liv knows that situation though, because he doesn't talk to anyone about it. Because sadly, because Liv had came to Mike about the fact is that she was having memory gaps, but Mike was like, he was reluctant to tell her that he found out he was going through the same thing too. Sadly, Harry doesn't know that Liv is in the process of figuring things out herself. All he knew about was like, oh man, Mike is losing, like he's talking about he's lost memories. So Harry isn't on the lookout for Liv, who's diving deeper and deeper. Because she even went to see her aunt's grave, and she was like, right, you're the only person I ever told about my alien encounter. Well, she's like, she told her husband, but he didn't believe her. But I don't know if she ever really said like how her aunt responded, like whether her aunt believed her or not. But Liv is getting deeper and deeper down this rabbit hole. But especially because Mike ended up finding out, wait, you're telling me like I went with you to get a biopsy and everything's good. He's like, how could I not remember? And it ended up bringing some issues up between him and his dad. Like they kind of argue a little bit. He's like, most people, fathers and sons, they go fishing. He's like, me and you, we haven't done that since we were little. But even he's like, maybe you should get checked out because someone as young as you having memory issues like that's not a good thing. And so he goes to Harry, and Harry's like, all right, fine, I'm going to mess with his memories again and give him a different memory. Which he says, like, right, I gave him a memory to make it so that he's not suspicious about that day. So it makes Liv feel probably even more isolated. So she's probably going to go deeper down the rabbit hole, but also by herself. Probably better for in the long run. Because I even love Harry being like, oh, he'll think I'm a killer and a werewolf again. Because it's like, yeah, let's not forget that's what he thought Harry was. But he did, like, he's like, oh, if I gave Sheriff Mike a good memory, then, like... Which, side note, they have not gone down the big black route like they did last season. They haven't leaned into that. But he's like, oh, if I gave him a good memory, that's just a coincidence. Me messing with his memory, yeah, that's an alien in me. You could have given him any memory, but you decided to give him a good memory is because of the human in you. You know, you become so human that he gave him a memory of him fishing with his dad because he's like, yeah, he's talking to Liv. He's like, no, I remember my day. It was a really good day. A really, really good day. So it's like, no, it's no coincidence. It's like, no, whether he realizes it subconsciously or whether he realizes it or not subconsciously, he made the choice to give Mike. He could have gave him like any regular day, but he gave him a good memory. I think that speaks volume. Or maybe it is a thing of maybe he was just trying to give him a memory and it purely was a coincidence. Maybe I am giving Harry too much credit. Because why would he specifically pick that memory? Well, because he did open up to Harry about, like, right, my partner, like, passed away, and I haven't been right since then, so maybe Harry took some of his most recent memories and was like, oh, you and your dad haven't gone fishing since you're little? Okay, I'll use that. So I'm curious, why that specific memory? Is it just something like, okay, I'm going to make your memories fill in the gap of whatever you want it would be? You know, it's kind of using your own subconscious to create the memory, or is it something he chose to actively make? Because it seems like, even because he can make the memory because he made the FBI agent and everything, that whole sequence up. So for him to make up this whole sequence too, it's like it can't just be on that person's like mind to do it. It has to be him creating the actual memory itself. I don't know. I'm interested to really know how that works. So that's why I'm flip-flopping. Like I might be giving Harry too much credit, or maybe I am right on the money that he did it on purpose, even though he wants to say it was just a coincidence. Either way, I'm very, very excited to ultimately see where all of this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode with all of this. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.